You can choose your language by clicking on the globe icon and selecting Korean or English. Ladies and gentlemen in the Republic of Korea and the United States, welcome to our annual webinar about the military command in Korea responsible for the defense of Korea, the ROK U.S. Combined Forces Command, or CFC. The Korea Defense Veterans Association and the Korea U.S. Alliance Foundation are very honored to host this webinar so that we can hear about CFC from its current and former members. KDVA and KUSAF share a deep commitment for supporting the Alliance, CFC, and our veterans. We are very proud to take the occasion of the founding of CFC on November 7th, 1978, to conduct this annual CFC webinar with current members of CFC and to remember and honor all the people of CFC. I am Colonel Retired Steve Lee, the Senior Vice President of KDVA. Today, we will cover these main topics. Go behind the scenes to hear how CFC leaders and the staff work together. Discuss military operations, exercises, and training. And what are the challenges ahead for CFC and how will CFC meet them? The sequence of events will be welcome remarks from General Retired Vincent Brooks, KDVA Chairman and President, and General Retired Chung Sin-jo, KUSAF President. Then we will introduce our panelists and conduct a moderated discussion. Finally, we will open the floor for Q&A with our audience members. You can write questions at any time using the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. You can do this even before the Q&A starts. Please keep questions short and relevant to our discussion and address your questions to a speaker. This webinar will be available on the kdva.vet, that's VET, digital library, and the KDVA YouTube channel within 1 or 2 days. Now, ladies and gentlemen, General Brooks for his remarks. Sir.
Thanks, Steve Lee. I certainly appreciate it. And thanks to you and Erlene Hollerith and Amy Fisher and all of our support team for putting together this webinar, this final webinar of the year 2022. And we're delighted that everyone could join us today. It's morning in Korea. It's evening in the United States. And for wherever you are in the world, we're grateful to you for being interested enough in the Korea-U.S. Alliance and in particular in support of the Korea Defense Veterans Association and the Korea-U.S. Alliance Foundation to join us tonight or today. I'm General Vincent Brooks, as introduced, and I'm honored to serve as the Chairman and President. Let me just say, as we begin this specific webinar focused on the ROK U.S. Combined Forces Command, this is an organization that is unique in the world. It is the only standing binational command that the United States participates in. And I don't know of any others at all, but certainly for the United States, this is the only one. There are multinational commands that the United States participates in, but there are no standing binational commands where two nations assert their national authorities through a single entity for the prosecution of war if necessary and day-to-day deterrence to prevent the resumption of war on the Korean Peninsula, in the airspace above it, and in the waters around it and below it. Now, this is extraordinary in its nature, having been created in 1978 and now operating in a way that brings the two countries together in the closest possible way for 44 years and counting. I want to thank the original commanders and deputy commanders of this command, General Jack Vesey and General Lee Byung-hyun, who set the tone for the organization back in 1978. It was the best hedge against the withdrawal of U.S. forces and solidified our commitment there. And all the way up to the present partnership between General Paul LaCamera and General An Byung-suk, two great leaders who are serving the two nations as an alliance leadership team to this very day in a very challenging year. Let me also thank Colonel Jacob Robinson, United States Marine Corps, and Colonel Lee Ki-young, Republic of Korea Army, for participating as panelists today. We look forward to hearing from you. Both of these are operating officers. They're the ones who are in the trenches making the operations of the command happen every single day. And I have no doubt they've been well exercised with the number of provocations and demonstrations that have happened this year, as well as scheduled exercises and the resumption of that. This is the warfighting command of the alliance, and there should be no doubt about that. The other commands are enablers and supporters, but only one is responsible for fighting, if necessary, to protect the Republic of Korea, and that's the Republic of Korea U.S. Combined Forces Command. So thank you all once again for supporting us and being a part of this today. We look forward to the dialogue that will occur and look forward to your questions also. Before we proceed, I'd like to invite my brother, my friend, my colleague in supporting this alliance, General Jung Sung-jo, who is a former chairman of the Republic of Korea Joint Chiefs of Staff and now president of the Korea-U.S. Alliance Foundation, our very important partner and supporter at the Korea Defense Veterans Association, to provide some opening remarks. Hung Nim, please go ahead.
Thank you, Aonim. Good morning and good evening and welcome, everybody. I am very glad to that KUSAF co-hosts this webinar with KDVA. I would like to express my appreciation to General Brooks and KDVA staff for conducting leading role to organize this webinar. I also thank Colonel Lee and Colonel Robinson, excuse me, for joining this webinar as the panelists. During summit meeting earlier this year, President Yoon and President Biden described the alliance between Korea and US as the global comprehensive strategic alliance. Yes, it is right. However, the central part of the alliance is the military alliance. The Combined Forces Command is the symbol of the military alliance. CFC is the very unique organization, as General Brooks already mentioned, which is the most effective warfighting command in the combined operation environment. One more good fact is that both countries agreed to have CFC even after the wartime AFGAN transition. First, congratulations on the entire movement of CFC to Camp Humphreys. Now, the CFC Pyeongtaek era began. I hope the CFC may advance continuously to achieve their goal. I had an opportunity to visit Hawaii last week. When I visited Indo-PACOM, US PACAF, PAC Fleet, and APCSS, everybody said the alliance between ROC and US is ironclad, a blood alliance, unbreakable, and stronger than ever. However, I don't believe the alliance is granted. We need to make effort to maintain and enhance the alliance. We are so lucky to have the two great supreme leaders who understand the value and importance of the alliance very well. The government officials and the military leaders work hard to enhance the alliance. However, it is not enough. We need to let the people understand the value and alliance. In this sense, I am very proud that KDVA and KUSAF are conducting that role as the civilian organization. Once again, thank you very much who are attending this webinar. I expect the active and candid discussion. Thank you for joining this webinar, everybody. Thank you. We go together.
Sir, thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so let's get right into it and meet our CFC leaders for our moderated discussion. Colonel Jacob Q. Robinson, U.S. Marine Corps, is the CFC Deputy C-33, or the CFC Deputy Chief of the Current Operations Division. Colonel Yi Ki-young is ROK Army. He is the CFC Chief of Theater Operations Branch. So let's start with this question for our panelists as a scene setter. How did you get assigned to CFC, and what were your first thoughts about the assignment? Were you excited, concerned about being assigned to Korea, concerned about English as a primary language, perhaps, of CFC? So we'll start with Colonel Lee and then Colonel Robinson. Colonel Lee, please.
제가 처음 이게 연합사의 보직을 받았던 때가 지금 이 두 번째 이제.
This is my second time serving at the CFC. I think it was back in 17 years ago when I was just a major. 7 years ago. I was at the GOC, and it was completely new to me when I came over to the theater ops branch. So that was a big challenge. And I was very nervous about how I should serve, how I should communicate. 지금 혹시 안 들리십니까?
If we can ask you just to go to the English translation channel, you'll be able to hear him.
Currently, I'm on the English channel.
Okay, my apologies. Please go ahead.
네, 잘 들린다고 합니다. So compared to 17 years ago, I had a lot of aspirations and also felt very nervous. And also had some kind of surprise factor to it. And all these aspirations and my dreams were met with the obstacle of language barrier when I came to CFC. So I realized for the first time when I had a phone conversation how difficult it is to talk on the phone. When I got DSN when I got for my first DSN, and I talked on the DSN with an English colleague, I could not figure out what they were saying because I could not see their hand gestures or body language. So I finally understood the difficulty of talking in English. So I got post. Oh, my colleague at the time gave me the call sign postman because I was always waiting at the phone like a postman. So despite all these challenges, CFC was the place that I wanted to come back during my military career. So I made a lot of effort after my first serving in CFC. So that's how I came back to CFC as a theater ops branch chief. So that's all. CFC was a place of opportunity for me in my career. And also, it gave me the chance to learn more about the operations. And also met a lot of good colleagues like Colonel Robinson here. So after overcoming the challenge, it became a vital point about my military career.
That's wonderful perspective, Colonel Lee. Thank you so much. Colonel Robinson, please.
To General Brooks, General Jung, yourself, and the team for inviting us to this. I appreciate the support. So in the Marine Corps, much like many other services, I suspect you have a similar saying, but we call them orders and not requests. So when you get told to go somewhere, you go. But that being said, I would offer that I did choose to come to South Korea to this assignment. So for me and my family, and this is what I recommend to everyone, which is if you get an opportunity to do something that you think will challenge you or you think will be different or unique, then you should take that opportunity. So I heeded my own advice in that way, and that's how I ended up here. So we do appreciate the opportunity to experience the culture. And I certainly don't now, you know, a year and a half into this assignment, I certainly don't regret that decision. You asked about what my concern was prior to coming here. And it's funny, you also mentioned language. And I think you know very well that our Korean teammates are far better at English than the majority of us are at Hangul. In fact, my Hangul and every other language, quite frankly, that is not English is fairly terrible.
He's good Korean speaker. He's good.
I do, but what I would say that mitigates that, one, as you just heard, Colonel Lee has the benefit of speaking to me in English, probably understands it better than I do. And the other thing is I'm surrounded by a lot of great interpreters and translators who are patient and have a recognition and appreciation that some of us are better than others with respect to language. So.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And clearly, Korea is an assignment of choice, and it was certainly an assignment of choice for you. So thank you for your contributions. So, Robbins, let's stay with you. What do you think about the CFC mission to defend against the North Korean threat? How is CFC distinctive, adaptive, capable, and ready? Your thoughts, please.
So General Brooks mentioned it, and we often talk about the uniqueness of the mission. And I would reiterate from my perspective, just to put it in the same context and add some to it, is if you see how the United States fights across our history, we prefer to fight as coalitions. Those coalitions are generally specific to the conflict, and they only last as long as they need to. And to reinforce General Brooks's point, this is unique and different in that it is ongoing every day. It's not something that we choose, only when necessary. I mean, you know, we're sitting next to each other right now, but we sit next to each other every single day. I mean, our officers are next to each other. We have the same boss. So that I think is really the essence of the uniqueness of the combined forces. You talked about, you know, primary mission is deterrence, being prepared to defend South Korea as the alliance requires. In addition, should that deterrence mission fail. I think the one thing I would offer about, in addition to the uniqueness, is the idea of interoperability in the ROC in U.S. military forces. So there's a CFC is combined. There's a combined U.S. ROC division. And we are combined all the way down really to the squad leader level. And that interoperability is I think, a key strength as well as it relates to the mission of deterrence and defense, in that we seek to create military capabilities that are transparent as to which nation is the one that is employing that capability, because we are so combined. And that is the essence of interoperability, both at the 4-star staff command level, all the way down to the level where we get to the troops that are ones that are actually doing the hard work of deterring and defending.
Well, wonderful. I appreciate those opening thoughts. Colonel Lee, how about your thoughts on the same question, please?
I think Colonel Robinson captured everything, so I don't know if I have anything to add. So I think it goes beyond just USFK. It is not just the merging of the USFK and the Korean forces, but it comes to the common multiplier as a strategy. And that really doubles the uniqueness and also the capability of the CFC. So it captures the pros and cons of both nations, and also the differences lead to better improvement for both organizations. So these merging, these common multipliers are very beneficial for the alliance. And I think that is the power that the CFC wields as a combined organization. So in order to further enhance these capabilities, we need continuous training, we need continuous cooperation and collaboration. That is why we meet every day together in combined meeting to further discuss what we have on mind and on the agenda. So I think this kind of capability is what we have.
Wonderful. So we'll stay with Colonel Lee. We just heard a lot about readiness, capabilities, interoperability. So as the CFC Chief of Theater Operations branch, so what are some of your main responsibilities? How do you work with your counterparts on the ROC, Joint Chiefs of Staff, and USFK? Colonel Lee, please.
The branch I'm affiliated with is under the C-33, and there are two key missions. First is the function for the command and control C2 function. Second is to provide and shape the environment for functional C2. So what we do is guarantee the C2 during contingency and peacetime. And as mentioned, the question itself, what we need to really key in on is the counterparts at the ROC-JCS and the USFK. So among the functions the ROC-JCS has, we share 2 or 3 functions with them. So in order to manage bilaterally, we carry on a lot of collaboration meetings with them, with the ROC-JCS and USFK. So we talk about what kind of capabilities we have right now and what limitations we have. And also, as mentioned by General, during provocation from the North Korea, we have more we have more alertness regarding the C2 environment. So we talk about how we can meld together to combine the US system for communication and the ROC system for communication. And also we talk about if contingency takes place, how the CFC can function to make this happen. Make the command and control very safe and guaranteed and continuous. And we also have combined training experiences from the CCP. We also talk about how we can do the crisis action management. That we carry on a lot of daily dialogues and collaboration meetings, which are all the solutions for that kind of challenges. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Colonel Lee. So, Colonel Robinson, as the USFK current operations chief, how do you work with CFC component commands, US Indo-PACOM, and the US Pentagon?
Yes, the Indo-PACOM and joint staff piece is fairly easy. I mean, we have all the technology in the world, with the exception of the fact that we're at a significant time disadvantage. So when you're on a disadvantageous time of your boss, you are the one that has to adjust. So we work 24/7 regardless of the requirements to maintain connectivity to both Indo-PACOM and joint staff. The second part, and the part that we're really here to talk about is the interaction with Combined Forces Command. So as you noted, and I think I'll draw this out because I think it's an important distinction. Aside from the disadvantage of having two jobs, the advantage that is created in just using my position as an example. So I am the current operations division chief for U.S. Forces Korea, responsible for all current operations. I work with Colonel Lee and for General Kong, who is the current operations division chief for Combined Forces Command. So one of the advantages is that I can't simply focus on one or the other. So I don't know if it was General Jung's idea or General Brooks' idea, but it's an exceptional way to organize some of the key positions in that they have both CFC and USFK responsibilities. What that really allows us to do is to work much closer together, because it's not just picking up the phone and calling someone and asking for help, but it is an integrated part of the way in which we communicate and ultimately see all the things that are required for us to see from a military perspective to be prepared to deter and defend. So I think that is one of the key things that we do between U.S. Forces Korea, Combined Forces Command, as well as United Nations Command. There are similar positions among the three commands that are very similar in principle to what I just described.
Okay, so Colonel Lee, there's been media reporting in the past 2-3 years that have questioned the need for military exercises in Korea. So without getting into political considerations, what do you think people don't understand about exercises that could better inform opinions?
For combined training exercise is directly linked to the reason for existence of the CFC. So it is what we had agreed upon during the CFC, and we also talk about the military muscle. We train just like we train our bodies. Training and exercise is training for our combined operations during contingency. So what concerns me is, because there are so many provocations recently in North Korea, I feel that we are not getting ready enough for those kind of provocations. So we must train before the actual contingency takes place. And we must train how we're going to respond to these various challenges that we face. And especially at the CFC, we have discrete cultures, rocket use culture, and discrete military doctrines in the military. So these things, we need to deconflict, and we also need to close these kind of culture gaps that we have. So training actually does that function. While staying at the bunkers and the training, we fit ourselves to the battle rhythm, and we also go through a lot of personal training. So in order to maintain the capabilities we have at the CFC, we need to continuously train so that we can continuously shape our capabilities, these challenges. So from military perspective, these kind of trainings and exercises are essential for the CFC. And looking at CFC alone, it is indispensable. So we need to continuously create the conditions for favorable sentiments from the public. And this kind of ROK-US friendship was shaped only because we had continuously trained together, and we had the chance to talk, the chance to share it with each other. So training is the venue for us military to military conversation and cooperation. So it is very essential.
Well, I think that was very well stated. Colonel Robinson, your thoughts, please, on the same question.
I think exercises and training are ultimately the key to our readiness as a military. And we go back to, we've talked multiple times about being prepared to, about deterring every day and being prepared to defend the alliance if necessary. And the idea of being ready is a necessary part of that. And that's what exercises and training do for us. Important to note, they are perishable skills. There is a constant cycle of new units, new people, new capabilities, and different aspects that ultimately enhance our ability to be able to deter and defend. And the continual cycle of exercise and training is, again, it's necessary in order to maintain the greatest capability to be able to do that. Again, it goes back to readiness. I mean, readiness is achieved at all levels, whether it's, like I said before, whether it's at the 4-star staff level, that's one component. But you have to do the events and the activities that you are expected to do. You have to be able to do them at scale. And it's one thing to say that, hey, I can do parts of it, but ultimately at a fairly regular frequency, you have to bring it all together and to be able to execute at the complete level to include all aspects of training to ultimately contribute to your readiness.
Well, I'll tell you, you guys, it almost seems like you synchronized your responses. It was just covered such a great depth, so I appreciate that. So this is the final moderated question before we go to Q&A with the audience. So staying with Colonel Robinson. So what do you think is a common misunderstanding about CFC? What do people get confused about CFC and perhaps the United Nations Command or UNC? Colonel Robinson.
Yeah, I think General Brooks noted in the opening comments, I think the distinction and the recognition that CFC is the warfighting headquarters. There are other commands, supporting commands in the parlance of the military, being U.S. Forces Korea and United Nations Command. But I think the one thing that strikes me of people who've not had the experience, because it is unique. When we've talked about this, it's unique amongst the way in which the U.S. military interacts with its allies. So I think understanding that the Combined Forces Command is the warfighting headquarters is perhaps one point of confusion. The other that I know related to your question about United Nations Command is really what is the responsibility of United Nations Command. Again, United Nations Command, not a warfighting command, has a very specific mission, created by United Nations Security Council resolution after the end of hostilities in 1953. But their responsibility, the United Nations Command, is ultimately to maintain the armistice and return the peace. Again, and similar to Combined Forces Command, they do that with both ROC and U.S. Teammates, as well as the 16 United Nations sending states that contribute overall to that mission. So I think understanding the different missions and then understanding how they interact and contribute to each other is perhaps the greatest misunderstanding, because it is unique and it is structured in a very specific way that suits the requirements and takes advantage of the opportunities that we have here in South Korea.
Okay, thank you very much. And Colonel Lee, same question, please.
So the confusion about the mission and functions of the CFC and the UNC. So that is the first thing, UNC's role and capabilities. So UNC wields the capabilities as military command. So when we go to combined operations meetings, or when we hear any reports regarding combined operations, people take a lot of interest. So there are a lot of confusion, especially about the UNC, about what they are actually what they function for, what they're actually established for. Not many people actually understand them. And like Colonel Robinson just mentioned, they compromise with the CFC with different functions. And the CFC functions mainly for wartime operations, wartime combined operations. Also for denying, for deterring and defending against any provocation. So I think we can say that we go hand in hand in the current MK with different functions or different missions. So we also talk about the values of combined training and exercise. And during exercise, we take different functions, the UNC and the CFC and the USFK. So we try to calculate what we have, what we do with the different capabilities and functions. And I hope that we can talk more about the different functions and capabilities we have and how we cooperate together during peacetime and wartime and contingency. So I think there are still some confusions. Yes.
Okay, well, thank you both for tackling on can be a difficult topic. So moderated discussion concludes. Appreciate it. It was wonderful. So now we're going to open it up for Q&A. We've got several questions. So let me start this question, and we'll start with Colonel Robinson. As CFC co-locates this year on Camp Humphreys with USFK, how has the ROK-US alliance evolved? And what are some of the future opportunities to growing stronger together? Colonel Robinson.
So when General Brooks was here, we were co-located in Seoul, all three commands together. For a while, when I got here, we were in the midst of a transition, right? And it's not easy to move, really ultimately 3 4-star headquarters, all the people, all the facilities, and all the responsibilities simultaneously. So the point I'm trying to illustrate is now that we got the team back together again. We were together before, it was just quite a bit harder. I did a lot more driving up to Seoul. And those of us that did have the dual responsibilities, they really had to rely on technology. I think the advantage is that we are co-located again. It takes me, less than a minute to go talk to Colonel Lee or General Kong, whereas before you could pick up the phone, coordinate a phone call, do a video teleconference. So we had all the capability before. It was just not the same. There's no substitute for the ability to interact and to sit down and to take advantage of spontaneous opportunities to conduct training or communicate or do all those things. So I think ultimately we are better when we're co-located, and I think that really leads to the opportunities. I think the sense that we're together again and it's not as hard to create those opportunities, I think is the opportunity in and of itself, is that no longer do you have to coordinate and schedule 10 weeks out and try to get folks together, when it is so much easier to create those opportunities because we are co-located. So I think that's the primary opportunity for us.
All righty, wonderful. So the next question is about extended deterrence. So I'll open it up to Colonel Robinson or Colonel Lee, and then perhaps either General Jung or General Brooks would like to comment. Okay. So this question comes as extended deterrence is how the U.S. and ROK will deter and respond to the growing North Korean nuclear capability. It is critical. The U.S. has committed to extended deterrence for many years. Recently, the U.S. government and the ROK government have had a lot of discussions about enhancing extended deterrence. What are the additional aspects of this enhanced extended deterrence beyond what it has been in the past? Now, Colonel Robinson or Colonel Lee, would either of you like to start off talking about this, or would you like to punt to either General Jung or General Brooks?
I think as this is a policy question, probably significantly outside of mine and Colonel Lee's day-to-day professional responsibilities, I think we'll punt, Steve, if that's all right.
Okay. General Jung or General Brooks, sir, would either of you like to comment? I think General Brooks has got his camera on. Sir, if you wouldn't mind opening.
Nice punt. You guys are doing so well. I'll just make a brief comment on this. I can't speak to what specifically is different in actual practical application as I'm not on the scene, but I can tell that the rhetoric for the two countries is different. And the affirmation of commitment of the full spectrum of U.S. capabilities as part of the extended deterrence seems to me to be the enhancement. Before, it was very much focused on nuclear capabilities and nuclear response and defense against nuclear threats. But now it seems to be much more broad about the full array, and that's explicitly mentioned in the results of summit meetings as well as ministerial meetings over the last year, especially. And so I think that at least is part of it, and a recognition that it has to be built into a sense of confidence between the two countries. It's not something you can see very easily. It's a matter of faith. You can't see extended deterrence. And if you are seeing it, it's for demonstration purposes, not for the effectiveness of it. Just as an example, nuclear ballistic missile submarines that belong to the United States don't need to be seen to be effective. And being in range is the only thing that matters. And that's the umbrella that's provided on a day-to-day basis. But how is that viewed? How can you build the trust in that from a political perspective and a population perspective? And I think that's where the challenges are for extended deterrence. The ball's back to you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. General Jung, sir, would you like to comment at all on this, sir? I wasn't sure if you wanted to.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
I can't begin my video. Okay, anyway, when we say deterrence, we usually need the capability to retaliate when the opposite side does something wrong. And second, we need commitment to use that capability. And third, that commitment and capability should be communicated to the opposite side. I believe the capability of the United States to give extended deterrence is very strong, strongest in the world. Even North Korea knows about it. But the important factor is the commitment or will of United States to use that capability. So it must be communicated to North Korea so that North Korea believes that United States will certainly use that capability if the North Korea does something wrong. To do that, I think the deterrence, extended deterrence, should not stay in the kind of declaration level. It must be detailed plan, well tailored and well detailed to the situation. So I hope the Iraq-US alliance develop that the extended deterrence plan as a kind of upland level. If it is the upland level, we can exercise in accordance with that upland. And one more thing is we may consider the build some kind of nuclear planning group. We can benchmark the nuclear planning group of NATO to Northeast Asia. If we have it, North Korea may think the US is really engaged, and the US will really use that capability. Third, Korea need to advance its own nuclear-related capability. For example, Korea is not allowed to have what do you say? I don't know the exact English the word. What is 제철이? Reproduction? Anyway, if we have more capability related to nuclear, then it can be also the method to increase the deterrence capability.
Mhm.
Yeah, let me stop here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's what I would consider a PhD level answer to that very difficult topic in question. And so really appreciate the two former commanders. So let me just ask Colonel Lee and Colonel Robinson to sort of take us behind the curtains. When there is some sort of a North Korean provocation, missile launch or some other tactical provocation, what are some of the things that are going through your head? Because I know you're one of the first people to get called in to assess the situation and then figure out what needs to be set up so you can inform your bosses and then be prepared to brief the deputy commander and commander. So just give us some insights onto what are some of the things that you're thinking about as a crisis is developing. If you don't mind, we'll start with Colonel Lee, please.
As we briefly mentioned before, a lot of provocations are happening right now recently from North Korea. And as you mentioned, Colonel Robinson and I, we are part of the first responders. We're the first people to listen to these kind of news reports. So we first characterize what kind of provocation it is. And we discuss and how has it affected the USF CFC capabilities and assets. So we try to, as first responders, identify what happened due to the provocation in the first place. And second, we talk about how we can respond and how we need to respond and what capabilities we have on hand. We talk about making a shared voice, making one voice within the CFC, ROC JCS, USFK, and the USC. And we try to discuss as a combined team how we can collaborate to make that one voice so that we don't have any gaps in situational awareness, so that we will speak in one voice. So that is the biggest thing that Colonel Robinson and I talk about and are concerned about during provocation periods. So we try to share what we have, the intelligence, most of what we have on each other, because US intelligence methods are superior compared to us. So we talk mostly after that about how we respond together as a combined team with each other's different assets. And then we talk about what intent this provocation had. And after that, at the AER, we talk about how we can respond for future provocations. So that is the first kind of thing that comes to our mind. Thank you.
But I think I picked up on the context of what Colonel's conversation was, and I think my answer is fairly similar, right? Simply, I would say coordination between and among the multiple commands, communicating as fast as possible with as much information and clarity as possible are the thing, and then providing situational awareness, and ultimately the one thing that current operations exist to do, which is to synchronize all of the aspects of the command to answer the simple question of what decisions does the commander need to make. And those are ultimate, and those are how our processes are organized. And those are how our activities are directed when we do, because every situation is unique. Absolutely. It's the weather, timing, allied perspectives, what's happening, where's it going, who's concerned. So considering all of those, I think fundamentally we try to just focus on how do we best communicate a clear picture and provide the greatest level of situational awareness as fast as possible, and anticipate and direct those things that the commander finds necessary to be able to both coordinate with ROC counterparts at the Joint Chiefs of Staff level, as the generals are very well aware of the communication process between the senior U.S. military commander as well as the senior Republic of Korea military commander, and the responsibility to be able to do that. So I think ultimately that is what we're focused on and what I think about as we deal with situations.
Well, I got to tell you, that's about as well stated as I've heard from both Korean and American that work current operations. So thank you very much. I want to continue on this theme, if you don't mind. Unfortunately, both of you have had a lot of practice this past year. So what are some lessons learned that you could share with us at an unclassified level? We'll start with Colonel Robinson.
Practice makes perfect, but never be satisfied with good enough. Because as I noted, we train as well, and the joke is that our training sometimes happens to us whether we want it to or not. But that said, we still train. We still train and prepare regardless, because every situation is unique, and everyone presents a different set of requirements. Now, there are certainly some similarities, but what we've really done is, I think we've really taken the opportunity of the multiple incidents to enhance our own ratings and enhance our own communication and better prepare our own the people that we work with ultimately to do the hardest thing that they may ever have.
Colonel Lee, anything to add, sir?
Yeah, so there have been many provocations from the NK. So we have a lot of lessons learned from these challenges, provocations. So when we assess these provocations, NK's intent after many provocations becomes, we try to identify what kind of intent they had on mind. It becomes more clear as more and more provocations take place. Perhaps this was the intent we had in mind, or this was the purpose. Following these enlightenment, following these lessons learned, we have a better picture, better understanding of the better picture of what the NK has in mind. So these experiences accumulate. So over time, it really helps to enhance our readiness posture, and also helps to combine us together, the ROC and US partners. So we learn a lot through these experiences. However, we should not take these training experiences for granted. We should always stay on alert, always on our feet. So every week or every month, we try to reflect. We try to link with what we have on provocation with our annual or regular OPTs. So that we are trying to respond that way.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And again, I think you brought up a very good point about North Korean intent. It's just so difficult, but we certainly applaud, and we definitely have the right team right now on current ops. We'll conclude with one final question, and we'll start with General Jung and then General Brooks. This is about current situation and the state of the ROC-US alliance. So how has growing tensions in number one, Europe with Russia, Ukraine combat operations, two, renewed escalation of North Korean missile tests and threats of new nuclear testing, and three, coupled with China's increased pressure on Taiwan reunification, how has that affected the ROK-US alliance? General Jung, sir, would you like to make any comments on this, sir?
Oh, all right. The host suspended my video. Okay, anyway, if you can hear me, that is okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. When we see the war in Ukraine, I believe there are more possibility that China and North Korea try to make some provocation, either in the Taiwan or in Korean Peninsula. That's because the U.S. is a little more focused on the Ukraine situation. However, there is one good factor in Korea that many people became to understand how important the alliance is. Actually, the Ukraine has not the alliance relation with United States, but Korea is an alliance. So it is very good thing to have United States as an alliance. If there is any situation in Korea, the response of the United States must be different from that in Ukraine. The people became to understand that. It is a good factor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. General Brooks, sir, would you like to comment on this?
Well, it's been interesting to see the effect of Russia's operations in Ukraine relative to what may have been their strategic aim of fracturing the alliance system around the world, and ultimately, along with China, displacing it and replacing it with something else. In fact, the opposite has occurred. So Russia's operations in Ukraine solidified the alliance relationships in Europe and has actually drawn South Korea's support militarily into Europe. So South Korea's connections with European nations, particularly Poland, but others, as General Jung said, even Ukraine very directly, has changed significantly. So Russia actually helped to advance the strength and the quality of the alliance system globally, and is an absolute failure of their efforts strategically. That then reflects back into the Indo-Pacific region, where I think there's now an increased attention on being able to respond collectively to threats to Taiwan, ensuring Taiwan is able to still support and defend itself and operate as a relatively independent part of one China. And South Korea's engagements with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations is, I believe, derived from that as a counterbalance to expanding Chinese influence throughout the region. So we see this emergence of South Korea, as has been described by the South Korean government, as a global pivotal state and part of a comprehensive global alliance with the United States that's manifesting faster because of what has happened in Russia and with Taiwan.
What a great way to end our Q&A. So I'd like to really thank all our speakers for joining us today. This has been a fascinating look at CFC from current and former members. We hope you found some new perspectives and a better understanding of CFC's importance in defending Korea, as well as being a force for stability in Northeast Asia. KDVA and KUSAF's mission is simply to help the ROK-US Alliance, CFC, and our veterans. And one of the ways that we do this is by conducting events like today's webinar. So here's some upcoming events that support our mission. Stories like these are also found in KDVA's quarterly Alliance Journal, which was just published. We dedicated this recent journal to CFC during the founding of the Combined Forces Command in November 1978. KDVA is starting local chapters in the United States and virtual common interest groups from anywhere. So we are looking for volunteers who would like to get a local chapter or common interest group started. Please consider joining KDVA. As our senior leaders talk about, you've already paid for your membership by your service in Korea. It is literally free. It only takes a few minutes. So details for everything are available at our website, kdva.vet. We do all of this in the KDVA model of Together for the ROK-US Alliance. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time.